What if I told you that the same forces that toppled democratically elected governments overseas, overthrew Mossadegh in Iran, assassinated Patrice Lumumba in Congo, crushed Allende in Chile, bombed Libya, invaded Iraq, and sanctioned Venezuela, are now operating here, inside American democracy? What if the machine that crushed socialism abroad is today targeting Zohran Mamdani, a progressive candidate fighting for working-class New Yorkers? This isn't just history, it's power. Who wields it, how they wield it, and why America has spent nearly a century terrified of socialism. For over a century, a relentless war has been waged against a single idea: socialism. This isn't just a historical footnote, it's a consistent pattern of undermining movements that challenge concentrated power. The US government and powerful corporations have consistently opposed socialist ideals, both globally and domestically. We've seen this play out in countless nations, from the oil fields of Iran to the mineral-rich lands of Congo and the revolutionary spirit of Cuba. These interventions weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a grand strategy. Today, that same strategy is being deployed against a mayoral-elect in New York City. The political opposition targeting NYC mayoral-elect Zohran Mamdani is not new. It is a direct continuation of this long-standing pattern, a modern echo of historical battles. This struggle, at its core, is about power. It is about the ruling class's profound and enduring fear of socialism. They fear any system that prioritizes people over profit, democracy over corporate control. This fear drives the narrative we are constantly fed. The primary driver of America's fear of socialism is simple: the potential redistribution of wealth. Socialism, by its very definition, threatens the vast fortunes accumulated by a select few. It challenges the very foundation of their power. Powerful institutions have always stood in opposition. Wall Street banks, oil giants like Exxon and Chevron, and weapons manufacturers such as Lockheed and Raytheon see their dominance threatened. Billionaire dynasties, from the Rockefellers to the Kochs, have built empires on systems that prioritize profit above all else. They fear any system that prioritizes workers, communities, and the planet over their endless accumulation. This fear is not abstract. It is deeply rooted in their economic interests. These powerful interests didn't just react to socialism, they actively constructed a narrative. They built a doctrine equating capitalism with freedom and prosperity, while demonizing socialism as a threat to liberty itself. This narrative has been meticulously crafted and relentlessly propagated for generations. It serves to protect their wealth and maintain their control. The fear of socialism intensified dramatically after 1949. The Chinese Revolution and the global adoption of socialist-oriented governments sent shockwaves through the capitalist world. The perceived threat grew exponentially. A newly formed CIA, backed by powerful corporate interests, became a central player. Organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations, Rand Corporation, and giants like General Electric and United Fruit Company all shaped this new global chessboard. They saw the world as a battleground for ideological supremacy. Interventions were justified by the infamous domino theory. The belief was that if one country adopted socialism, others would inevitably follow, threatening the entire capitalist order. This theory became a convenient excuse for widespread interference. Its ideological crusade led to devastating global interventions: the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Cold War, the expansion of NATO, and countless covert operations funding insurgencies and coups were all part of this strategy. The goal was always to contain and crush socialist movements. For the American ruling class, socialism anywhere was perceived as an existential threat to capitalism everywhere. Socialism threatens one thing: concentrated wealth. From the 20th century onward, America's most powerful institutions, Wall Street banks, oil giants like Exxon and Chevron, defense contractors like Lockheed and Raytheon, and billionaire dynasties like the Kochs and Rockefellers, feared any system that put people above profit. So they built a doctrine: capitalism equals freedom, socialism equals threat. and that doctrine justified every coup, embargo, and war that followed. This universal threat perception fueled decades of proxy wars, economic blockades, and political destabilization. It was a war not just of arms, but of ideas. The history is clear and the pattern undeniable. In 1953, Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, now BP. This move threatened British and American oil profits. The response was swift and brutal. The CIA, in conjunction with British intelligence, orchestrated Operation Ajax, toppling Mossadegh's government. This coup installed a brutal dictatorship, all for the sake of oil profits. A year later, in 1954, Guatemala's President Jacobo Arbenz implemented land reform. He sought to redistribute unused land to impoverished farmers, threatening the vast holdings of the United Fruit Company. The company, with deep ties to the U.S. government, cried foul. The CIA intervened, overthrowing Arbenz and plunging Guatemala into decades of civil war and instability. Corporate profits were prioritized over democratic will and human lives. In 1961, Patrice Lumumba, the first democratically elected Prime Minister of Congo, sought to control his nation's vast mineral wealth. His vision of an independent, prosperous Congo threatened Belgian mining interests and U.S. strategic access to resources. Belgium, the CIA, and powerful mining corporations conspired against him. Lumumba was assassinated, and Congo's resources remained exploited by foreign powers. Chile's democratically elected President Salvador Allende nationalized the copper industry in 1973. This directly challenged the interests of U.S. corporations like ITT and PepsiCo and major U.S. banks. The response was predictable and devastating. The U.S., through the CIA, supported a brutal military coup led by General Augusto Pinochet. Allende was overthrown, democracy was crushed, and thousands were tortured and killed. Corporate profits once again dictated foreign policy. For over 60 years, Cuba has endured a crippling U.S. embargo. This blockade was imposed not because Cuba posed a military threat, but because it demonstrated a successful socialist model. Cuba achieved remarkable success in literacy, healthcare, and establishing independence. It did so without the dominance of U.S. corporations, proving that an alternative was possible. This success was deemed too dangerous to tolerate. More recently, in the 2000s, Venezuela under Hugo Chavez nationalized its oil industry. This move directly challenged the power of ExxonMobil and Chevron. The U.S. responded with a campaign of sanctions and destabilization. These sanctions have devastated the Venezuelan population, yet the U.S. maintains its pressure. The pattern is consistent. Any nation that attempts to assert economic sovereignty and prioritize its people over corporate profits faces the wrath of the American ruling class. This is the war they don't want you to see. Muammar Gaddafi in Libya and Saddam Hussein in Iraq both used their country's oil wealth to lift their people, building schools, hospitals, housing, and modern infrastructure, and promoting education and empowerment for millions. Yet their successes made them enemies of the very powers they had defied: Western corporations, Wall Street banks, defense contractors, and billionaires who saw independent, prosperous nations as threats to their profits. Gaddafi's vision for Africa, including a pan-African currency and social welfare programs, and Saddam's modernization of Iraq, challenged U.S. control over oil and global markets. So the United States and its allies intervened through war, sanctions, and propaganda, leaving devastation in their wake, all to protect corporate interests and ensure that resource wealth flowed to the West, not the people. The Red Scare was not just about foreign policy. It was a powerful domestic tool. It was used to suppress socialist and progressive movements within the United States itself. The fear of communism was weaponized to crush dissent. The FBI systematically targeted American activists who dared to challenge the status quo. Union organizers, civil rights leaders, socialists, Black Panthers, anti-war activists, students, and immigrants were all subjected to surveillance, harassment, and repression. Their movements were dismantled, Today, the tactics have evolved, but the underlying motivations remain. Powerful financial entities like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Goldman Sachs continue to exert immense influence. Organizations like AIPAC and the Real Estate Board of New York, REBNY, pour vast sums into political campaigns. They fund efforts specifically designed to defeat progressive candidates and policies. These groups are not driven by ideology alone. They are driven by a profound fear of economic justice. They fear policies that would tax the rich, empower workers, and regulate their industries. They fear any challenge to their concentrated wealth and power. The domestic war against socialism is a war against economic democracy. It is a war against the very idea that society can be organized for the benefit of the many, not just the few. New York City, the financial capital of the world, has become a critical battleground in this ongoing struggle. It is a place where powerful interests rely on a predictable political order, one that serves their bottom line. The stakes here are incredibly high. Yet a new generation of leaders is emerging, challenging this established order. Figures like Zohran Mamdani are advocating for genuinely progressive policies, pushing back against decades of corporate dominance. They represent a growing movement for change. Their progressive platform is clear and uncompromising. They advocate for housing and healthcare as fundamental human rights, not commodities. They demand worker power, corporate taxation, and the reallocation of bloated police budgets. They champion a foreign policy rooted in justice and human rights, not corporate interests. These are not radical ideas to the people. They are common-sense solutions to systemic problems. This platform directly threatens the entrenched power structures of New York City. It challenges the very foundations of wealth and privilege that have defined the city for so long. The battle for New York is a microcosm of the larger war against socialism. The Real Estate Board of New York, REBNY, fears Zohran Mamdani because he supports rent stabilization, tenant rights, and social housing. These policies directly threaten the profits of billionaire landlords and developers. He stands with the tenants, not the tycoons. Wall Street and powerful finance PACs fear Mamdani because he advocates for taxing the ultra-rich and ending corporate loopholes. He seeks to reclaim public funds for public good, challenging their immense financial power. He demands accountability from the financial elite. AIPAC and its aligned PACs fear Mamdani due to his principled stance on human rights and foreign policy. His commitment to justice extends globally, making him a target for those who prioritize geopolitical interests over human dignity. He refuses to be silenced on critical international issues. Police union political machines fear Mamdani because he supports mental health response teams over escalating police budgets. He advocates for community-led safety solutions, challenging the militarization of policing. He seeks to reimagine public safety for all. Big money donors fear a socialist mayor who won't privatize public services, sell off public land, or bow to developers. They fear a leader who will prioritize the needs of the city's residents over the demands of wealthy benefactors. They fear losing their grip on power. Corporate media outlets like the New York Post and Spectrum News play a crucial role in this fear campaign. They consistently portray Mamdani as radical or extreme. This is a deliberate tactic. Their goal is to protect extreme wealth and maintain the status quo. This media portrayal mirrors historical tactics used against socialist leaders for generations. It is the same playbook, just a different name. The war they don't want you to see is being fought right now, in our cities, in our media, and in our political discourse. It is a war for the future, a war for who truly holds power. If you believe that people, not corporations, billionaires, or political machines, should have the power to shape their communities, then join us. Subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, share this video. Every view, every subscription, and every share is a step toward holding the powerful accountable and giving a voice to leaders like Zohran Mamdani and the millions around the world who have been silenced. because history shows us change doesn't come from waiting. It comes from standing up, speaking out, and making your voice heard. Subscribe now and be part of the movement. The fight for justice doesn't wait, and neither should you.